Resurgence of Magnificence, Command Bridge. My Lord Andrew, I once more implore you to reconsider your position. The second princess has claimed Lord Kendall, shackling him for her to display as a prisoner. Not to mention that Redford Kalin is at the forefront of the task group operating under her command, exclaimed a tall, thin, brunette woman as she stood next to Andrew Caston Ho was, in turn, sitting on the captain's chair. Around the bridge, almost every station was empty as only a handful of personnel remained. Andrew, wearing his pristine uniform, gave the woman wearing a uniform with the insignias denoting her rank as a commander of the logistical division at his side a quick glance, barely sparing a second to stare into her mid-grade cybernetic eyes, before returning his attention to the holographic tactical display in front of him. The station was present, and every ship under his command currently docked was marked alongside the Resurgence of Magnificence. He analyzed every ship within his ship's sensor range, trying to determine where the princess would strike from. Because she would strike, against every other sensible or cowardly advice and argument would be disregarded with barely a passing moment of consideration. He'd set the trap carefully, after all. The capture of his kin, Kendall, had been confirmed the moment his 3 frigates reported their entry into the system before falling silent again. They had fulfilled their role, pretending to be there for some unknown, unrelated reason to Kendall's capture. Indeed, much like his father would, he'd make use of a useful peon without it knowing it had been used to further his own goals in a game far beyond its understanding. For a moment, he let that notion sink into him, filling him with disgust and amusement in equal measure as he compared himself to his father, and, as always, found little difference between the two. He was his father's son no matter how much he detested that reality. Instead of pushing those thoughts back, he embraced them. He'd learned through long years of repeated fits of inner contempt that the more he tried to deny his feelings on the matter, the more his mind drifted, unbalancing his focus, shattering his concentration, and shifting his attention away from his goal. Raventomb had escaped him once because of that failing. And now, he couldn't afford to be anything else but unyielding. The princess was somewhere in the system. He knew she had to be. Like many of her forebearers, Clara Astor was afflicted with unmatched arrogance, greed, selfishness, and an overwhelming overconfidence that guided her actions, even when she was too blind to see it. The lure of 3 frigates was nothing more than a tempting target that would draw her in. Whatever precautions or misconceptions were still present at the forefront of her mind, they would be annihilated upon seeing his battlecruiser. Redford Kalin, the famous and lauded Vorpal strike, would also fall within his trap, but through other means. Without a clear knowledge of who could possibly be commanding such a ship, he'd be emboldened to act, to take the first action, and do as his nickname suggested. Would he consider him the commanding officer of such a mighty vessel? Possibly. But without certainty and with no concrete indication that he was walking into a trap, he'd launch an attack. Andrew's lips twisted slightly into a smirk. Of course, the Vorpal strike wouldn't be as naive as to believe there weren't risks involved with a potential assault. A decapitating strike, however, was far too tempting to pass up. Despite his fame and standing, his greatest weakness was a most simple one. The decapitator never expected its neck to be at the mercy of a sharp blade striking at it. Together they would succumb to the ruse he'd created. Together the need to claim a grand prize and satisfy their vainglory would become their downfall. Above all other considerations, however, was the possibility of having Wyatt Staples within his grasp. A rumbling chuckle resonated within his chest. Even the best laid-out plans can go awry at a moment's notice. This is hardly such a well-crafted strategic move, Andrew thought to himself with mild amusement. Is this cowardice that you're displaying, Lalina? Then again, House Riverborn isn't famed for being particularly bold, now is it? He jabbed, making his voice known while his gaze was fixed forward. The brunette noblewoman, Lalina Riverborn, pressed on undeterred by his piercing comment. It is not cowardice that drives my words, Lord Andrew, but caution. Her Majesty is as cunning as she is dangerous. Lord Kalin is both ruthless and measured. Were they to see the resurgence of magnificence, I fear they may launch an assault, Lord Andrew. At the very least, allow me to inform all of our troops to stand ready for immediate action. Andrew turned to her slowly, his unblinking, high-end cybernetic eyes focusing on hers like a predator assessing his prey. Then, after a tense moment of silence that was felt across the bridge, he let out a snort, dismissing her argument and shattering the building tension. I will not deny my personnel their well-earned right to unwind and find mild relaxation in this port. We're not far away from our base of operations, and we're not undefended, Lelina. Lelina stepped closer, frowning slightly. But my lord, his Lord Regent. I am aware of the position and charge that his Lord Regent has bestowed upon me, Andrew countered dryly. It is within my authority to dictate which ships and personnel are to be rotated in and out for shore leave and proper maintenance. You are of tremendous aid, Lelina, my chosen XO. However, I will not tolerate further questioning on this matter. Is that clear? He asked, eyes narrowing dangerously. The brunette woman with short, bangy hair closed her eyes for a moment, then saluted the man, taking a step back. I understand, sir. My objections stemmed from concern for your safety and the future success of Operation Hammerblow. It was never my intended goal to insult you, my lord. Andrew chose to remain silent for several seconds, letting the commander's nervousness escalate for just long enough to bring her relief when he crossed his arms. A prudent observation, if nothing else. I will not deny that the possibility of an assault crossed my mind. However, we've seen no indications of their presence. No entry warp signatures from either ships or probes, came his reply, turning his attention back to the holographic display. And if they come, we'll have more than enough to prepare accordingly to meet, match, and surpass them in battle. Where are you hiding? How did you manage to slither your way past every warning station? How will you strike, I wonder, Redford Callan? An all-out frontal assault? It'd be fitting for a man with your reputation and accomplishments. However, you've taken a fondness for increased misdirection and underhanded tactics. Yet I do not believe that you will recklessly assault the station itself, the short-haired man thought to himself as his gaze found the station again. If his officers were aware that he'd purposefully chosen the station to act as a shield against the Reaper and her forces, many would judge him as a cowardly, treacherous, deplorable snake without honor. And those voices would be among the kindest. None of that mattered. Not when he could achieve so much. His Lord Regent will forgive me once I return at least 3 ships back under his banner and present to him the second Princess, Cynthia Winfield, and Redford Callan as my prisoners. Mayhaps even I will be allowed to keep Wyatt Staples's head as my trophy. He mused, jaw clenching at the thought of that most hated man. As the pilot he was, it would be difficult to ensure his capture. He could die in a fighter. That was always a possibility. But should he be captured, he'd repay the pain, trauma, and fear he'd delivered upon his youngest favored and beloved son, Casimir. Seeing the terror in his eyes, hearing the pain in his voice, and knowing that his son would likely never recover unless Wyatt Staples was dead and gone, his memory washed away by irrelevancy and nothing more than an insignificant footnote in history, and his head presented to Casimir. But if he were to be captured, then he would pay heavily, for the bear was a wrathful, unforgiving beast. An opportunity had presented itself before him, one that did not require endless, pointless gatherings, meetings, and discussions that would ultimately see that opportunity evaporate like ammonia at room temperature. Inaction had cost the principality much across the span of centuries, if not millennia. Now was not the time for doubt, but for action, with such a tempting target within reach. Yet all of his plans, his dreams of justice, fair and righteous punishment delivered, and personal desires were nothing more than fanciful fantasies should the princess decide not to attack. Worse, what if she had simply not followed the lure as he thought she would? His excuse was believable, but his absence would raise questions he would much rather leave unspoken. Internally, Andrew scoffed as each passing second felt like an insurmountable obstacle he had to endure. This is why I hate ambushes and traps. The weight. The inability to take proactive actions until the time to spring forth takes place. A most useful tool and strategy to employ, if vexing beyond the point of tolerance, he thought to himself, continuing his watch for any sign, whatever minuscule that would reveal where his prey was hiding, or, in its own hubris, believed themselves to be the most clever predator of the two. Minutes passed until, suddenly, over a dozen small, previously undetected marks appeared on the display around the station. Without hesitation, Andrew stood up from the captain's chair and contacted the station's traffic control command through an encrypted channel via the network.
We now have an official Android app available right on the Play Store. The link is in the pinned comment below. Go ahead and download it now. Get access to all your favorite Black Ship stories. The whole Black Ship catalog is available, including all side stories and the full books. You can download all free content straight to your phone for offline playback, but downloading is a perk, so just subscribe to one author or the platform to unlock this feature. Download the app now while you listen. The Apple version is in development and will be available soon. Now, back to the story.
Traffic control confirmed the following report. A dozen unknown signals have been detected at 1508. This is traffic control, Resurgence of Magnificence. We see the signals. We're trying to determine their origin point and sending out general hails. No response has yet... Wait, we are detecting 9 additional signals all around the station, came the frantic answer. Andrew watched as more and more signals appeared on screen until 44 were blinking in and out every few moments. Ghost signals, he muttered dispassionately. My Lord Andrew, we must send a general recall. We're under assault, implored Lelina as her voice turned shaky. Her Majesty wouldn't dare, would she? She would under other circumstances, replied Andrew coldly. The squalid victories over our Lord Regent would be rendered null and void should she strike with reckless, blind fury at a civilian station. Not even she... His words died in his throat when several new dozen signals appeared on the holographic display simultaneously. All of the new contacts were, apparently, heading directly to the station. Vectors, he demanded. Calculating, sir, replied his communications division head officer. 3 seconds later, red lines appeared, marking the real objectives of what could only be a missile barrage. The truth, Andrew contemplated with frustration, was that the station wasn't the intended target. Rather, it was what was docked to it. More specifically, his black ships. He gritted his teeth as he saw his docked ships struck by a barrage that he was certain was a so-called Staplion assault. Before that moment, he had only theoretical suppositions about how they worked. Now that he was seeing it firsthand, the ire in his stomach grew larger and more profound. His battlecruiser shuddered ever so slightly before the holographic display flickered and nearly died out alongside several other stations. Still, the haywire assault had been only marginally effective against his previous preparation against the high probability of having the resurgence of magnificence being disabled at the outset of the conflict. The Talon of Malovia, Uncapricious, Verse of Glory, Shining Retribution, and Blade of Victory are completely disabled, my Lord Andrew. Their communications have been lost. Minor structural damage predicted across all ships. Sir, we've confirmed that the enemy assault was exclusively composed of a barrage of missiles dragging haywire mines. We can't pinpoint a point of origin, but, my Lord Andrew, more contacts detected. Shuttlecraft, hot drop pods, and boarding pods detected. Shields down! PD turrets and outer countermeasures are now unavailable. Technician-in-Chief Gerard reports that internal systems remain largely unaffected and functional. Orders, sir! Cried out a growing, panicking officer. Andrew clenched his fists tightly. Send a message to the unyielding Fang, the Sunstrike Candor, and the Fist of the Bravest to engage. Order our present troops to take defensive positions and prepare to repel boarders, he ordered without doubt, then turned to a stunned Lelina. Commander Lelina, you and the head officers will move to the security vault until this crisis passes. My Lord Andrew, surely you jest. You, above all others, should move to the security vault. You were selected personally by his Lord Regent, and must you test Lord Tamirin so? You are a heir apparent, my lord, not an irrelevant member of your house. Do you plan to face the princess's forces head-on? Lelina asked, breaking out of her stupor. We must recall all of our forces across the station and let them deal with the perfidious enemy. There is no time. Behold, they are upon us, replied Andrew succinctly as screens descended from the ceiling, giving multiple camera angles of various areas across the ship. What few personnel present on the hangar or storage bays performing diagnostics and other maintenance checks had evacuated the zones moments before the first hot drop pods made contact. From within the large gray pods emerged Royal Marines, denoted by their armor, with ROSF elements following close behind to support them. They moved quickly, securing the hangars without facing initial resistance. Moments later, regular boarding pods arrived, unloaded their cargo of Marines, auxilia, and, as per Laskit's report, a few Ikanti. Sir, there is a video transmission across all channels. It has been uploaded to the station's network and is looping, said the head officer. Play it, ordered the heir apparent of House Caiston. The tactical display was replaced by a serious, stoic, cold Clara Astor, the second princess herself, staring with unfeeling violet eyes. To every non-affiliated living soul aboard the trade and dock station Dappen and every ship present in the Dappenshaw system, Hear my voice, that of the second princess of the Astorian Principality, Clara Astor, and pay heed. You will not be harmed nor involved in this conflict against House Caiston forces. Do not interfere, do not obey the ranting commands given by anyone who claims to recognize Duke Cornelius Draymore as a legitimate Lord Regent. For he is not such and will never be such. Your liege, the legitimate prince of our ancient nation, calls you not to arms either, for he understands your plight and wishes not to see your life fall into ruination or, worse, lost on a pointless scuffle. You will not be harmed, nor targeted by either side, should you refuse to cooperate with the ingrate Caiston curs. I ask you to remain neutral, for I shall not persuade you with false promises of power and riches to act recklessly. But should you cross this line, you will be treated as enemies and dealt with accordingly. Aim not your guns at either side, stand your ground, and let us settle this matter pertaining to those of noble blood in this succession dispute. Loyalty is its own reward. The messages looped back from the start again, but Andrew had heard all he needed to hear. "You have your orders, Commander Lelina!" he exclaimed as he turned away from the captain's chair and the holographic display. Connecting to the network, the enhanced reality of his eyes provided him with a small but readable tactical display and a video feed of what was happening across his ship. "Lieutenant Bazak with me. Captain Nenda, I trust you know what to do?" "By your will, my lord," replied the finely clad honor guards in unison who had, up until that point, remained ignored and silent throughout the entire ordeal. Commander Lelina watched as Andrew Caiston and his honor guard left the bridge, leaving behind yet another honor guard at the helm of the ship with cryptic instructions. For a moment, she didn't know what to do until the armored man spoke up. "Lord Andrew has given you your orders." "Go now," said Nenda as she sat down on the captain's chair. "Leave the intruders to us." Lelina began to move, followed by the communications division head officer, eyes narrowing slightly as she realized only then that Andrew had never appeared shocked by the princess's message or the attack itself. She had suspicions that he was operating under a secretive mission, but now she wasn't sure if that was the case or if this encounter was part of his own machinations. Whatever the case, she had no desire to put her life on the line fighting against Royal Marines. Silently, 2 Marines escorted her and the head officer to the security vault. A few minutes later, as Andrew advanced through the long, pristine, white-gray, and beautiful corridors of his entrusted ship, he came to an abrupt halt as the shuttles arrived on the now secured hangars. Some more Marines and auxilia emerged from them while the Royal Marines and their ROSF support advanced with caution through corridors and hallways, seeking control panels, labels, and critical rooms. They had yet to encounter the first sign of real resistance, and now that more Marines, auxilia, and what appeared to be mercenary infantry were arriving to secure what they thought would be an easy prize, he saw him. Stepping outside from a shuttle's cockpit was the man he was looking for. The dark gray armor was the same. Middling ROSF-grade combat armor, the soul snatchers on his holsters, the helmet, and most damning of all, the white periton on his chest. "What is he doing boarding my ship? Does his hubris know no bounds?" Andrew asked, his voice heavy with contempt. "My lord?" asked his honor guard lieutenant, concerned. The lock-bearded man took a deep breath, then resumed his stride at a more frantic pace. He needed to retrieve his armor, and his knives. The plan was a simple one, all things considered, and as far as Wyatt cared to understand. Assault the battlecruiser, secure only key locations, identify it, wait for Jincho to overcome its cybersecurity systems and AIs, have Cynthia capture the command deck, and as many officers, including whoever was the commanding officer, as she could, and then flee the system with the battlecruiser under their possession. But to achieve that goal, they first needed to break through its cybersecurity systems. Something that, whilst technically possible to do from any systems panel, speed was of the essence, and to do that, the Yikanti had to access the ship's network through its core processors. Wyatt followed Milcades and a surprisingly quiet Jincho as they made their way deeper into the ship. The pilot, try as he might, couldn't help but compare the battlecruiser's Hangar 2 to the Noir Navios and found they were nearly identical in design. The only difference was their size. The battlecruiser's hangar alone can house half a Talon. I wonder if the other hangar is identical, or if it served another less combat-oriented purpose since he didn't see any shuttle. "Have your team secure the hangar until we're back," ordered Milcades to a trio of Marines and their auxilia, causing them to salute in response. Breaking into a soft jog, the trio moved with Milcades at the head. A few moments later, he asked, "Will you be able to do it, Jincho?" "Yes, Fire Eyes." "Difficult task. Expect much opposition. Link bridge will be useful. Additional attack venues. Powerful vessel. Secrets more to be found." "We'll find. We'll take." "The data, it sings to me," replied Jincho energetically. "What can confirm now is, ship is Resurgence of Magnificence. Networks easy to pierce, but layered. Good. For Principality. Not solitary wall. Easy to break, but odd. We'll need proper interface to fully dive." Suddenly, he let out a loud squawk that made his helmet vibrate. Ship map acquired. "You'll have it," Milcades promised as he received a more detailed map courtesy of Jincho. "And when you're done, I'll take us out of here," replied Wyatt, accepting his role in the impromptu mission he'd been dragged into alongside Jincho. His avian friend's role was vital, but his was something any other pilot could fulfill. But Milcades refused to be piloted by anyone else because, in his own words, should they need to retreat, be it after victory or through the result of some unknown altercation, he could trust him to get them all alive or fulfill his duty. A grim praise if there ever was one, though now not entirely unfamiliar coming from the Royal Marine's preferred form of humor. After almost 10 minutes, they reached an intersection divided by 2 hallways and a functioning elevator. Milcades stepped in first, connecting with it, followed by Jincho. But before Wyatt could join his 2 companions, every source of light across the battlecruiser flickered violently. The elevator's doors snapped closed in front of Wyatt, who, reacting just in time, retrieved his left hand before it was sliced off. Jumping back, he unholstered his soul snatchers and took a defensive stance, as the sinking feeling that they had walked right into a trap started to manifest in his stomach.
We now have an official Android app available right on the Play Store. The link is in the pinned comment below. Go ahead and download it now. Get access to all your favorite Black Ship stories. The whole Black Ship catalog is available, including all side stories and the full books. You can download all free content straight to your phone for offline playback, but downloading is a perk, so just subscribe to one author or the platform to unlock this feature. Download the app now while you listen. The Apple version is in development and will be available soon.